Hey everybody, Jennifer Schaus here. We're coming to you live today from Washington, D.C., and thanks for joining us in our Webinar Wednesday series. This year, calendar 2023, we are covering the top 40 federal contractors, and we're going sequentially based on the dollars that they've posted over the last several fiscal years. Today, we're covering Huntington Ingalls. Let's go ahead and get started. Our webinar today is complimentary and recorded, as are all of our webinars. You can now find them all on our YouTube channel. There's over 600 webinars, all focused on federal government contracting topics. If you're looking just for the PowerPoint, you can hop over to the SlideShare site, and that will give you the PowerPoints. I think you can log in there with your LinkedIn credentials. It doesn't cost anything either. Okay, and just a quick blurb about us. We are based in downtown DC and provide professional services for revenue generating government contractors. Our services are listed here on the third bullet point that range from market intelligence reports through contract administration. We do have a heavy focus on contract vehicles, including GSA schedules and more. Obviously, we put on webinars throughout the year, as well as events and conferences. More information's on our website. If you're trying to sell to federal government contractors, we can help you with that. Our newsletter goes out on Mondays and Wednesday mornings and reaches over 25,000 subscribers, most of which are government contractors. LinkedIn, we've got over 27,000 followers. And do have advertising options there. If you're looking for a media kit, which will lay out all of the options and pricing, just shoot us an email to the hello@jenniferschaus.com email. Okay, some upcoming events and special webinars that we've got listed with our friends over at the Virginia PTAC. We've got two classes. The first is a Marketing 101, so just basics. One's happening in August, and then we've already got something on the schedule for February of 2024. Those are complimentary. I think they both start at 10 in the morning and run until about noon. Just use the Virginia PTAC link to sign up. I think we also have them posted on our website under the events section. These are webinars and not in person. The other class that we're teaching through the Virginia PTAC is focused on GSA schedules. That's June 15th, so next month, and then again in September. Those are also starting, I believe, at 10 o'clock. They run for 2 hours and they're complimentary. Okay, MyGovWatch is a platform for finding opportunities in federal contracting. We are doing a webinar with Nick Bernardo, who runs the show over at MyGovWatch, and he's going to be presenting some interesting data on NAICS codes and identifying bids. As you can see here, 38% of NAICS codes are incorrectly assigned, so you want to make sure that as you are searching for opportunities that are related to your business, that you're not missing out on any solicitations, and you want to make sure that the solicitations that you're looking at are in fact geared specifically for your NAICS code. That is a complimentary webinar. It's coming up in about a month, so Friday, June 9th. The registration link is there on the screen. It's also on our website under the events. This is a webinar and it is not in person. The Virginia PTAC has a great event coming up this month on Monday, May 22nd. It's over at the George Mason Arlington campus. It's a matchmaking event, and you've got everyone from Boeing to Dun & Bradstreet and the Air Force small business programs, NASA small business, DoD small business. I would say this is definitely a not miss event, so we hope to see you there. The VA will also be there, as well as HUD, Education, NAVFAC. You can see them all listed, so we'll be there as well and hope to see you. The registration link is listed here. It's also on the Virginia PTAC website. I believe there's a breakfast and a lunch. So again, we hope to see you on Monday, May 22nd at the Virginia PTAC matchmaking event. A little bit later in July, on the 17th, we have our quarterly networking event, which will bring in anywhere from 200 to 300 federal government contractors. We'll have federal agencies there, including Department of Education and Department of Defense. Federal Compass is one of our sponsors. You can get information about the event on our website under the event section. Okay, now for our actual webinar sponsors, the reason our webinars are complimentary is thanks to the sponsors. So we want to thank our friends at GovEvents, the premier platform for posting events related to government and government contracting. You can find all of our webinars and our events on govevents.com, as well as our recordings from our past 600 plus webinars. We also want to thank Tom Johnson and his team at Set Aside Alert. They are the go-to publication for contracting opportunities for small, women-owned, veteran-owned, hub zone, and 8A firms. Visit setasidealert.com for more information. The Fairfax County Economic Development Authority has an online calendar of events and webinars, and we want to thank them for posting our events and webinars on their calendar. Okay, GovSpend and FedMine. The contracting data in our 2023 webinar series is provided by GovSpend and FedMine. GovSpend FedMine is the leading trusted source of data, analytics, and insight for government contractors. They integrate data from 18 federal data sources and sets and create a single database that places key data points at your fingertips. The platform now provides contract opportunities within thousands of entities at federal, state, local, and education organizations. With the acquisition of FedMine in 2021, the combined platform empowers teams to make smarter decisions. Thank you to GovSpend and FedMine for providing the data in this webinar series and in previous years. The Virginia PSAC at George Mason University offers free one-on-one counseling to established government contracting firms in Virginia on federal, state, and local procurement topics. If you're interested in learning more, please use the links provided to explore services, review homework recommendations, register for live training, and find useful links to agencies and other self-directed learning. Online resources and group trainings are free with no restriction on business location. One-on-one counseling is limited to eligible client companies. The Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce monthly GovCon Council meeting to network with peers, learn about upcoming events and opportunities, and help to shape future programming. The meetings take place the fourth Tuesday of each month at 8:30 a.m. at the Greater Reston Chamber of Commerce. The next meeting will be on May 23rd. For June, the date will be June 27th. BidSpeed. Do you want help winning government contracts? BidSpeed helps and you win. Find opportunities from every federal, state, and local public source in the U.S. BidSpeed can help you find teaming partners, incumbent point of contact, expiring contracts, and can also provide you with a compliance matrix and proposal templates. BidSpeed is an official partner of the U.S. SBA's 7J Management and Technical Assistance Program. Get started today at bidspeed.com. And second to last year, we've got the Federal Business Council. Events are the ultimate engagement channel to bring government and industry together. 68% of government personnel report that they attend more than one event each year. The Federal Business Council has worked with government and industry for 45 plus years to create gatherings where ideas are shared and to help government achieve its goals. This includes agency industry days, cybersecurity symposiums, tech expos, and offsite meetings. FBC provides full lifecycle meeting planning and event management. With over 5,000 meetings under their belt, FBC has the experience, systems, and personnel to make your next event exceptional. You can learn more at fbcinc.com. And last but not least, GovEvents, looking for relevant government events where you can connect with the community. Sign up for your free membership on govevents.com to find the latest events that matter to you near you. Conferences, trade shows, virtual events, webinars, and networking opportunities are available at your fingertips. Plus, explore upcoming sponsorship opportunities. You can even access on-demand events that you can stay on top of the latest trends and best practices in the industry. And you can post your own events for free to further expand your reach. All of this and more with your free GovEvents membership. Okay, a little bit about our series and the schedule. As I mentioned, everything is complimentary and recorded. You'll find today's recording a little bit later on our YouTube channel, and the PowerPoints will be available on slideshare.net later today as well. Everything in red is what we have currently, what we've covered, and we're almost halfway through the season. We still have a little bit to go. We are covering the top 40. The registration link for all 40 is on our website. The link there is at the top of the screen. Today we are covering Huntington Ingalls Industries. We'll finish on Wednesday, November 15th with GlaxoSmithKline. The week that we skip is 4th of July. So as I said, we still got a little ways to go. So we are anticipating that most of the attendees are tuning in to learn about subcontracting opportunities. So we thought it best to just include a couple links on subcontracting as simply a reference point and education point. So the FAR and the DFARs obviously come into play here with subcontracting, particularly Part 44 on subcontracting policies and procedures. That's the link to the FAR. And then we've included the DFARs as well, as many of our top 40 companies do have a large presence in the defense sector. So it would behoove you to spend some time listening to the FAR and DFARs that we've covered in the past. Other complimentary webinars that we've covered on subcontracting, we actually kicked off this season with the first piece here, which is the subcontracting with the primes. There are 6 sessions covering everything from market research all the way to kind of post-award compliance. That YouTube link will get you to all 6 of those. In 2021, I think it was, or I'm sorry, 2022, we did subcontracting within all of the 15 federal departments. That link will get you to that piece on our website. If you want more tactical and strategic topics on subcontracting, we've got over 30 webinars on those topics. The link at the bottom of the screen will get you there. Best practices, obviously with subcontracting, you want to be kind of the best in class. Do something, find out what that is that you're providing to your clients, and do it well and be known exactly for that. Don't try to be everything to everyone. You want to find opportunities where there is something that you are bringing to the table, whether it's a lower price, a relationship at the agency, a special skill set or capability. And so focus on that. If you take the intersection of where your value proposition lies and what you're adding, that's kind of the cherry on top. And then you find identifying the companies that you can work with that are either going after that solicitation or have a recompete coming up, that will serve you well. Using data that's out there, there's no other vertical market that I'm aware of that has so much free data on SAM.gov, USA Spending, FPDS, and other bazillion other websites within the federal government sector that allow you to pull data and make decisions based on data. So use that data to your advantage, either by going to those websites or using any of the data aggregators that we mentioned in the last 10 or 15 minutes that either are providing data for this series or who are our sponsors. Do your homework. I would spend more time doing research than actual execution. That research will benefit you because you'll be able to narrow down opportunities that are realistic because you're using data to make those decisions. And as you start identifying companies or opportunities, if you're signed up for Google Alerts, you'll be alerted to any news that is impacting the company, positive or negatively, as well as the opportunity and or the department or agency. Your capability statement, you should certainly have one kind of bland one, but also another one that's focused specifically on the opportunity and whatever it is you're bringing to the table. Once you have all of this information compiled, you then want to make sure that you're registering on the company's website. We've got links for those for you. Sign up for their newsletter, find out what events they belong to, what associations they're a member of, when are they speaking, and and make it a point to then be there and shake their hand and have an educated conversation with the company. When you're dealing with these large businesses, the Small Business Liaison Officer, the SBLO, again, Small Business Liaison Officer can be your main entry point into the company. They can then help you find the correct program manager for who's ever overseeing the type of work for that solicitation that you're going after. Don't ask the SBLOs, or for that matter, the OSDBUs or OSBPs within the federal government to do your homework for you. That is something that you should be doing, again, because the data is out there, so use it to your advantage and set yourself apart from the other companies that are not doing that. Okay, today we're covering HII, Huntington Ingalls Industries, kind of a household name in defense and Navy contracting. I've got the link here to their website. They are a publicly traded company on the New York Stock Exchange. As you can see, they suffered a little bit in 2020, most likely due to the pandemic, but looks like they are coming back at levels that are kind of pre-COVID. You don't need to be a stock market expert or know anything about buying or trading their specific stock. Just be aware of where they've been and where they're going and what the outlook is for them, to, again, have an intelligent conversation with people at the company and just be cognizant of what the company is doing. The small business registration is pretty easy to find on their website. We've got the prospective supplier overview and then actually the form to fill out to become a supplier. Again, the slides are going to be available on slideshare.net later this afternoon. You can also quickly find this on their company website. Because a lot of these companies have subsidiaries and sister companies, we want to make sure that you know the UEI number for their SAM profile, which is listed here. Company obviously is headquartered in Dena, Newport News, Virginia. Some LinkedIn information. And they've got defense and space manufacturing as their line of business. The SBLOs, again, small business liaison officers. I don't think anyone listed on here is actually an SBLO. Most of these are subcontracts managers or administrators, which are going to be the folks that are doing more of the paperwork. So make sure you know the difference in those job titles. These people are probably working on subcontracting plans, and they are not the SBLOs. So, however, if you cannot find any of the SBLOs on the website or on LinkedIn, one of these folks might be able to help you. Just make sure that you are aware of the different divisions that Huntington Ingalls works in, or whatever the company is that you're pursuing. So you'll see here that Michael is based, I'm just going top to bottom here, Michael is based in Mississippi. Miss Miller is based in Abingdon, Maryland, and then Renee is based in Virginia. So that should probably tell you something about the division that they work in. Again, you can find more information on their website to make some deductive decisions about the divisions that they work in. Okay, we will now look, thanks to GovSpend and FedMine, at the data that shows up for their prime contracts on the civilian side. And what we've got here is, I will say, a steady decline in revenue. So if you just look at the totals at the bottom, they go from 1.1 billion down to 190 million. That's a huge drop. That's from 2019 to 2020. DHS had some major work with them in 2019, so they were, we'll say, kind of the biggest winner, but then things significantly dropped. So that could have just been an anomaly for DHS there in 2019. I'd be curious to see what happens in the years prior to 2019 and what actually DHS was procuring from them. But no surprise that civilian is not posting huge numbers here. I mean, these are still millions of dollars, but nothing overly significant, kind of steady work at HHS. Again, be curious to see what those contracts actually entail. And if you look at transportation, slight increase from 2019 to 2020, but then things kind of drop off. 2023 looks fairly strong for them though, so I'd keep an eye on those numbers, and that would probably be worth investigating a little bit further. Okay, when we look at defense, it's completely different numbers here. If you look at the totals, we go from 17 billion with, again, still a decline into 2020, not overly significant, but down to 16.5. 2021 and 2022 are still in decline, but nothing overly significant. Navy is the bulk of where the work is. Again, these guys are in the shipbuilding industry, so that should not be any surprise. So again, Navy is kind of leading the charge, but they've been declining since 2020. The Air Force and Army also in decline, and these would be worth further investigation. Obviously, these guys are, hitting home runs. These are big, multi-million-dollar contracts to build a ship. It's not. This is not IT professional services where contracts can range in size and complexity. These are larger contracts, so you're going to see big spikes and probably big declines. So it would probably be worth going back a couple of fiscal years to start making some more educated analysis about the spend and the contracts that they have with the government. But bigger numbers here on the defense side than what we saw on in the civilian sector. When we go over to the independent agencies, we obviously see a little bit of growth from 19 to 20. I'm just looking at the totals there in the last row, particularly with NASA and Social Security Administration, but things have dropped since 2020. If you look at 2021 to 2022, the totals, they go from 470 million down to 57 million, and that's a huge drop. Primarily based on, I want to say Treasury. So Treasury had almost, their numbers, if you look at Treasury, which is second from the bottom, 23 million down to 7, and then 903,000, so not even a million. Again, I'd be curious to dig into those contracts a little bit further, and then obviously a lot of adjustments there. And that Treasury, I would be very curious to see what exactly that entails. Not much growth here in anything on the independent side. There was growth again with NASA and Social Security Administration, but it looks like those have kind of teetered off. Top 5 NAICS codes, no surprise here. The bulk of the work, as their website and LinkedIn and everything indicates, is shipbuilding and repair. Some aircraft manufacturing shows up strong, but nowhere near the levels of the shipbuilding and repairing. This graph is kind of going left to right sequentially. So you can see that those numbers are actually dropping off for shipbuilding and repair. Aircraft manufacturing is a little kind of up and down. 2023 is kind of to be determined, and I would emphasize that simply because the bulk of their work is with DoD, and those numbers have a 3-month delay. The pieces that seem a little bit more steady, that are not as erratic, are their engineering services, the search, detection, and navigation, and then the other aircraft parts. There's not as many kind of spikes and dips, and they seem fairly steady. 2023, I would just kind of ignore again because of the delayed reporting with defense contracts. And this is just the chart broken out by dollars, so the same NAICS codes that we saw on the last slide. And again, just those same numbers that you can see. some spikes and dips along the way. When we look at contracts that have a sub-K requirement, these are going to be any subcontracts that are valued at $750,000 or above, and then anything that's related to construction is going to be $1 million or above. Homeland Security, which we had mentioned in the past, and this would require, I think, some additional sleuthing and homework to really dig in to find out what DHS specifically purchased from Huntington Ingalls. It could have been engineering services, DHS, FEMA falls under DHS. They could have purchased some smaller watercraft, but yeah, it would, I'm just kind of guessing. So it would just take probably about 10 minutes of your time going over to sam.gov and kind of cross-referencing that data. When we look at the contracts that have the sub-K for defense, no surprise here, Navy, so this more or less mirrors what we saw in the upfront slides. And as you can see, just the numbers also mirror those numbers that we saw, where there was a little bit of an increase in 2020, and then things dip off in 2021 and 2022. And again, these are fiscal year. 2023 is, again, 3 months behind. So even though that number looks low, it's really only looking at the first, we'll say 3 months of the fiscal year, October, November, December. And may include January and February as well. Independent agencies, none reported. Again, that's really where we saw NASA and Social Security Administration. So those contracts probably were not, no individual contracts valued at the $750,000 or above. Okay, now when we look at by agency, no surprise, Navy has the bulk of the work with Huntington Ingalls is with the Navy, by far more so than anything else here. Energy shows up, which I don't think we saw previously in GSA. I'd have to go back to that independent slide, but DHS shows up, and some others. So the important takeaway here is Navy is by far, they are primarily dependent upon the Navy for the bulk of their work. When we look at by industry, again, this is going to mirror the NAICS codes, and these are obviously similar to the slide that we saw with the graphs, shipbuilding and repairing. So if you cross-reference this with the last slide, obviously the Navy and shipbuilding and repairing is the intersection of where Huntington Ingalls work is going to fall. Obviously a little bit with engineering and services. You don't want to skip over that, as well as the remediation services. But and those are still, you know, decent dollars, and that's coming in at billions. So don't discredit those NAICS codes or those industries. Okay, we'll look at the subcontractors that they're working with, and it would probably be safe to say here that Mid-Atlantic Coatings Incorporated is a subcontractor to Huntington Ingalls for work at the Navy focused on shipbuilding. Again, these are the just based on the graphs that we saw. You've got some household names in here, including Honeywell and Johnson Controls. And so keep in mind that subcontractors do not need to be small businesses, and there is oftentimes, particularly in these contracts that are of this size, tier 2, tier 3 subcontractors. So further down the daisy chain, additional companies that are helping to complete the work. So there's nothing that would hold you back from being a subcontractor to Mid-Atlantic Coatings on a Huntington Ingalls contract. Just note that the further you are away from the contract, the less margin, the less money you are, profit you will be making. The top 5 subcontracts reported, and we have the subcontractor, including Honeywell here, that shows up twice, and these are the top ones based on dollar. And they go kind of with the largest one being the Air Center Helicopters Incorporated at the bottom. For government, for GWACs, we were not able to find any. They could have some, but typically in this industry, they're not usually going to be found on the type of work they're doing is not segmented for contract vehicles. The expiring contracts, so anything that's the sub-K requirement that's coming up to expire are listed here. I always find it interesting to look at the number of transactions divided into the dollar. So you've got almost at the very top and then at the very bottom two very different pictures. Almost 1,000 transactions into a significant amount of money. So that that top contract ending in C2307 has close to 1,000 transactions. If you go down to the very last row with the contract number ending in D6116, you only have 4 transactions going into the 21 billion there. I'm sorry, 21 million. So just be cognizant of that. Most of the NAICS codes here, at least the top 9, are focused on the shipbuilding. The PSC codes, there's one differentiator there on the K019. I'd have to look that up to know what that is exactly, but I would take a look at the contract numbers. I would just copy and paste the contract number. So that's column number 2 into sam.gov to get more information about those. So some conclusions, just some data that we pulled up. On the top right, I'll just direct you over to a screenshot from their website. So they're focused on shipbuilding, technology, and then they've got their Newport News shipbuilding focus, where there's the divisions, and just some data from MarketWatch, which is fairly relevant. May 9th, that was yesterday, saying that the Navy shipbuilding size is expanding this year, so that's, I guess, good news for them. And also some additional information from MarketWatch, which just gives you more information about this particular sector. A little bit of history about the company at the top left of the screen. I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping around here. They were part of Northrop Grumman, and then they were spun off in 2011. They're obviously a defense provider, and they've got a significant amount of revenue, primarily with the Navy, and a decent amount of employees. Their focus obviously is very narrow on shipbuilding, DoD, Navy. We saw that they've got the one main subcontractor that they work with who gets the bulk of their subcontracting business. We didn't see any contract vehicles, and just based on some news articles that we saw, it looks like workforce development could be a need. So even though we look at the company's NAICS codes and kind of where they're contracting, I think taking a holistic approach is also smart and healthy, because if you look at some of the quotes here from this Defense News article, which was just a couple of weeks ago at the end of April, you'll see some quotes here from their president talking about hiring and just kind of money that is going towards shipbuilding. So it looks like I think they'll be in business for a while, but there could be anyone that's in perhaps the recruiting sector, workforce development. These guys could probably use your help. So you don't necessarily need to be a shipbuilding expert to work with them. I think there are other ways, again, in a more holistic approach to find an avenue for your business. That is it. That's all we've got for Huntington Ingalls. We hope you enjoyed the webinar. And just a reminder that today's webinar will be on our YouTube channel, usually within about 5 or 6 hours. The PowerPoint will be uploaded as well. You'll get an email if you've signed up for the webinar later today or latest tomorrow morning with links to the YouTube as well as the PowerPoint. Next week, we'll look at Humana, and we will finish out the season on Wednesday, November 15th. Don't forget our summer soiree, July 17th, 2 to 300 federal government contractors at the Kennedy Center for a fun night of networking. So we hope you'll join us. The registration link is there on the bottom of the screen. It's also on our website under the events section. And that's it. So thanks everybody for joining us. We really appreciate your time and hope to see you next week.